This is just one of an infinite number of ways. So I don't want to, make that presumption that everything I say is necessarily the right path for you. This is the right path for me, okay? I just want to be clear about that, and that's with anything. This is the right path for me. I needed this to do what I need to do in life. I really did, and this resonates with me. Plant medicine resonates with me big time. So to go back, my first experience was July 7. The way that it fell into my lap was absolutely miraculous. Once I found out about plant medicine and ayahuasca ceremonies, I set the intention that I wanted to go to Peru to do it. And then what happened was a series of miraculous events, which basically fell in my lap. And I was connected with a shaman here in Melbourne who is the most incredible human being that he's just gifted. He's been fully trained by one of the highest shamans in Peru, and he keeps getting trained, and I don't know how it works. This is all beyond me, some of this, but it's all about mountains, and he's got one of the highest mountains. So like his teacher goes back right from the very beginning. Like this medicine is over 3,500 years old. And there are many people who go over to Peru and do ceremonies and get hold of the tea and run these ceremonies. But after speaking to a lot of people from the community, there are a lot of people who do this without integrity. So it's really, really important that if you ever do decide to do something like this, that you know that it's somebody with the highest of integrity. Because this kind of medicine, if you don't have the highest intention and the highest integrity and hold it with the highest respect and do all the rituals that you're supposed to do with it, because there's a lot of prayers, there's a lot of intentions, there's a lot of rituals that come with it. It's not just a matter of, hey, let's have this and let's see what happens. It's not like that at all. Then you need to be really, really careful. So the people that I got connected in with, like I didn't go looking for it. It fell on my lap the moment that I wanted it. And I did my first ceremony July 7th, which was psilocybin. So it was a Ayahuasca ceremony. So very similar to Ayahuasca. It was Ayahuasca. It was life-changing. I did a whole hour video on that, which is on my Eleni YouTube. You will see that. And it's also in this group. If you go all the way down, you'll see it. Everything started here in this group in terms of me sharing with it. But now I have a new website called Eleni, which you won't be able to find it because it's a brand new website. So if you put in Eleni YouTube, you won't find it because I haven't got my surname on it. But I have shared the YouTube link in this group, so it's in there. And then 3 months after, and I made drastic changes after that first ceremony into my life. I decided to sell the house, which I had not intended to sell the house previously. I decided to do so many different changes with what I was going to do in my life, the way I ran my business, the way I ran my personal life, my personal relationships. Like it had far-reaching effects on everything in my life, including the way that I think, feel, believe, trust, everything, the way I saw myself, everything. If you want to find out more, just see that video. And then within 3 months, I had a very deep calling to go back again. I didn't expect it. I thought I would go probably back in 6 months to a year. But I went back within 3 months, and then I realized as to why I needed to go back in 3 months. I really needed to go. And again, it gave me more clarity, it stripped more ego. So every time I've had one of these ceremonies, a huge layer of ego just dissolves because there are so many layers. There's not only one layer. And this third ceremony, so the first two were just me and Christian at a home, at the shaman's home, and he had his journey, I had my journey. We were lying down with what do you call them? I've lost the name. Somebody put in the chat. What do we put on our eyes so we can't see? You know what I mean. I'm just so like this, that's how I feel at the moment. So eye masks. Thank you, Kerry. So we had eye masks and we were lying down for the whole time, and so it was a very internal journey and it was very visual. Now, let me just tell you the difference between the first two and the third ceremony. Very different. The first two, and it was perfect the way I did it. Like, for me, it was perfect because Ayahuasca is very much a different type of plant medicine. So all the plant medicines, I want you to understand this first of all. Plant medicine is not a mind-altering drug, okay? It's not like going on ganja and then you see hallucinations and then, you know, it's not like that. That's not what this is. So plant medicine is a medicine. It's medicine that Mother Earth has given us to use for good. And it's been used by the ancient people for over 3,500 years. It is a consciousness. It is a consciousness. It is a separate consciousness. It's not like, oh, our mind is altered and this is the way that we now think. It is a consciousness that you're dealing with. It's another entity that you're consuming. You end up having a relationship with this consciousness. This consciousness is a teacher, a very, very powerful teacher. So the Ayahuasca, they call that the little teachers. And the way they teach is very different to the San Pedro that I had last week. So the little teachers, which didn't feel very little at the time, was for my first and second ceremony, the way that they teach you is very much like, this is the way it is. Oh, have a look at this. This is the way that it is. This is the way it is. This is the way that it is. It's like you've been told information. Like the very first one was like, oh my God, is this how it is? Is this the way it is? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Is that what happens? Is this the way that it works? Like you're just shown, it's revealed, it's all revealed very quickly in very quick images. It's revealed to you as to exactly what's happening. So that is like a huge, massive, next level awakening in terms of how the world is run, how the world is designed, what our place in the world is, how the people in our world impact, you know, our story and the reason we dropped into the body and all the rest of it. There's so much to that, but I've done a video on the first one and the second one, so please go back and revisit them if you want to, which is in this group and in the Eleni YouTube. This medicine is completely different. This plant medicine, which is San Pedro, which is called the grandfather medicine, is like a grandfather, or he is a grandfather, which is this consciousness is very wise, very gentle, very slow, very kind, but very firm. If you can imagine that grandfather that's giving you the advice in a very kind of considered way, but he's telling you how it is. So it's a very different experience. There are no visuals with this. It all comes in. It all just comes into your consciousness as your consciousness begins to merge with grandfather. This usually occurs in a group. So the community that this shaman has is over 800 people. Getting into one of his groups is quite difficult. I was very fortunate. Well, this sounds a bit mean, but obviously I was supposed to be there. But 2 people got COVID for me and Christian to get in. Okay, so obviously it wasn't their time to do it. It was our time to do it. I'm sure their time will be in the future. Okay. I knew it. I knew I would get in because I just felt that it was really, really necessary for me to do this for my next step. So in preparation for the plant medicine, your vessel needs to be as clear as possible. When I say vessel, I mean your body. And that was the same with the other 2 ceremonies as well. So leading up to the plant medicine, You know, I don't eat meat anyway. I'm a vegetarian. That just happened naturally for me 16 months ago. In terms of fish, I was a pescatarian before then for 22 years. I haven't eaten meat since I was pregnant 28 years ago, 30 years ago, whenever. And I stopped alcohol 16 months ago anyway. So in preparation for the ceremony, there's no alcohol, there's no ganja. I don't have ganja anyway. No alcohol, no ganja, no meat, no heavy curries, no chocolate, no caffeine. All of that in terms of being as clear as possible. So pure food as much as possible and clean food. The only thing that we take there is, as an offering, we take fruit. But on the day that we arrived, so the way that the ceremonies usually happen for San Pedro is, the best way to do it is to start with a one-day event, one ceremony, but it's really like a 2-day event, where you have it during the day, because day ceremony is very different to night ceremony. Night ceremony is really hard. Day ceremony is gentler than the night ceremony. So usually you would have a day ceremony, and then if you want to do another journey in the future, you would then do what's called an immersion, which is a night ceremony first and then a day ceremony the day after. All up it's 4 days, like a day before and a day after and 2 in the middle. And then after that, when you've done that and you want to, this is only if you want to, you don't have to, you can just do one if you like. There's a 6-day dieta, which is a week of ceremonies, and the whole time you're with other people, there's noble silence. So you're not supposed to speak a word to anybody during that time. And the food is very minimal, so it's really stripping you down to the core. So they're the progressions. I was supposed to have done the dieta because, being me, I convinced my shaman that I needed to do the whole 6-day experience. And as fate had it, my shaman and his wife got COVID and the whole thing was cancelled. And instead I got put into the 2-day one. So I skipped the 1-day one and went into the middle one, which is still a really hard way of meeting San Pedro, because you start with the night ceremony, which is fucking hard. So this is what happened. So I'll just let you know what happened. And we were told not to take any plastic stuff to the land, because it's where this is held is the most magical place in Victoria. It's just absolute a piece of heaven. And the way that this all came about, in them having this access in this land, was all miraculous. And this is the land that they do it on all the time. And so we arrived there. I actually asked for, there's only 2 caravans on the site, and I got it. Everybody else had to take a tent, but the caravan is, believe me, the caravan is like, I should show you a picture. It's like the windows don't close. It's very rustic. There's no power in there. So, you know, the caravan that I had, I was so grateful for it, but it's certainly not the caravan that you imagine. It's very, 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 very rustic, clean and everything inside, but yeah, that's quite a simple one. So we were told that on the day that we were arrived, so we had to arrive there by 6 p.m, we had to be there at 6 p.m, that our last meal for the day was going to be 2 p.m. So we weren't to eat anything after 2 p.m. Now, even though they said no plastic, I have a container that I put my retainers in, you know, for my teeth, which I wear at night time. And it's a hard plastic. I thought, oh, well, you know, like, they're not gonna, I'm just gonna put it in my caravan. I'm not gonna take it to the rest of the people. They won't even know. So the moment that I arrived at the caravan, but the first thing that happened was I saw, as soon as I arrived at the caravan, on the ground in front of me was that beautiful feather that I showed you guys. And it was almost like a confirmation that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be this moment. So we stepped into the caravan and I was getting my retainers ready for, like, I put liquid in there and put that special stuff in there so I can keep my retainers in there. This is what happened. It's a really hard plastic, really hard. I've had it for years. Didn't drop or anything. I just put the lid on it like this, and as soon as I touched it, it exploded. So like, this is the energy of the land. It just exploded through the whole caravan, like a million pieces. I didn't drop it. And for me, the message I got instantly was, this is you're on my land now. This is grandfather already letting me know that you're on my land now, that we said no plastic. And so it was, that's how it started. Like, it started before it started with me. It's not up to me. It's absolutely not up to me as to how this plays out. There's no control here. Okay? And then we got taken into the homestead, and all the rules were given to us. Things like, during ceremony there's noble silence, so you only speak when it's time to speak, and so on. There's a lot of rules, and the energy is just beautiful and loving, and the people are just incredible. And ceremony was supposed to start at, Lisa's saying, learning to follow rules. Yeah, exactly. And ceremony had to start at 11 p.m. that night. So my initiation to San Pedro was a night ceremony. I was really super, super excited. So we had to go into, so I can't tell you, I'm not allowed to tell you as to what it actually looked like. I'm sworn to silence, but it was pretty magical, the location that we were in. I can't actually tell you what it was, but it was incredible. We had to set up our bedding and so on. We weren't allowed to choose where we were to have our bedding. It was all chosen for us. The first night I wasn't next to Christian, I was opposite him, and there was a big fire in the middle. Like, the rule is, when the ceremony opens, you must walk anti-clockwise around the fire. You can't walk clockwise around the fire. And then when the ceremony closes, you have to walk clockwise around it. So that kind of thing is very, very important. Everything is treated with so much respect, so many rituals, so many prayers, so many songs. It was just incredible. So now I need to put my glasses on to say what I was going to say next, which is what happened next. Okay, it was the most gorgeous property on rolling hills, and all up there were 5 women and 11 men, because that's all that fitted into the space, the special space that was created, which was incredible. And we were told the rules before we went in, and first rule is the only way through is in. And isn't that true for everything? So the only way through is in. Number 2, deep breathing, really important. Number 3, to be as still as possible, like not to fidget, okay, to be as still as possible. Number 4, no expectations. Like, don't expect, and even when I'm telling you my story, this doesn't mean this is going to happen for you. You know what I'm saying? Everyone is so different. As an example, there are a number of people who did the Ayahuasca from this group that I referred them on, and their experience was different to my experience because they needed something different to what I needed. So and in fact, every time you have an experience, it's a different experience, even with the same person. So no expectations. So it's ridiculous holding expectations. Number 5, I told you about the anti-clockwise and the clockwise. The way that it worked with the plant medicine is that every ceremony has 3 windows which are open, where you are permitted to go to the Sharman and request the medicine. There's a lot of prayer that goes into it as you give the cup as he pours it, as he prays, as he intends, as he connects into his heart. And when we drink it, we lift it up and we say, Suma Kasi Pak. And they say, then everybody else says, Kasi Kipa. So there's a lot of words in there that the actual words are used. There's a lot of language that we needed to use, that the actual words were used. Men are called papi, women are called mami. If you ask for permission, you say permiso. There's a lot of, if we say thank you, we say gracias. There's a certain way that they send kisses and everything. It's just beautiful. It's like, and they're like, when they receive the kisses. It's just so beautiful. Everything is really, really beautiful. And so as an example, when people are speaking, they when it was time to speak, you would have eye contact with everybody. I'll do that now and show you what I mean. So, and really this is coming from my heart. I'm not just showing you what it means. So Carrie, Fiona, Katerina, Julie, Trevor's coming back, so I've got to blow him a kiss. Trevor, Tina, Lisa, Carolina, Yelka, Michelle, Chantel, Kay, and Suzanne. So there's a very, very deep connection whenever we make connection with everybody there. It's just so beautiful. The tradition, the songs, the words. Anyway, I'll continue. So the first ceremony, which was the night ceremony, started at 11 p.m. It started at 11 p.m. And we needed to move anti-clockwise to go to the fire. There were herbs around the fire, which we had to put in our hand, and we need to give our intention, and then we blow twice into the herbs, and then we throw it into the fire, and the fire goes up, of course. And so my intentions were twofold. My intentions were my son, that is Peter, to reconnect to his light and to step into his manhood. And number two is my second intention was for me, every time that I speak, to speak from light. I'm getting emotional now. I can feel it. I can feel the light. To speak from light and not ego. That were my two intentions. Because even though so much ego had been stripped from me in the first two ceremonies, it's a very sneaky little bugger. So it comes back in disguise. So it's so interesting with ego. There's so much I have learned about ego, in that, ego, once you see it, it changes form, so that you don't immediately think, oh, that's ego. So for me, after I got stripped of so much of my ego, because I had a lot of it in the first ceremony and second ceremony, it came back in the disguise of spirituality. Of course. So it came back in the, like a perfect example that played out before I went to ceremony. It played it out, and I saw it in the end, I caught it. But it was, I don't know if you saw my video. I've since taken it down. I'm going to do another video in the Hypnosis Business Success group about me buying a property in Queensland. And that, you know, there was so much that played out there. And that's a whole nother video that I'm going to do. But it came under the disguise of, well, you know, I'm worthy. I can get whatever I want. So why shouldn't I? So why would I not? Because I can. And, you know, I can manifest anything, so why not? So why not purchase this property? Why not have this? Why not have that? Why not have that? I can have it all. I'll be fine. There'll be no stress. There'll be no problem me paying the mortgage because I can do it all. That's ego. But it came under the disguise of, I'm a spiritual being, I can manifest anything I want. So it's very, 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 very sneaky. I uncovered it before I went to ceremony, which was great because that meant I didn't have to waste time uncovering it there. I could focus on the 2 points that I just said. Okay, so then we had to go anti-clockwise in terms of drinking the tea. So in terms of who held the space, the shaman and his wife, who's also trained as a shaman, both of them. And also next to them was the owner of the magnificent property, who also trained as a shaman, and he was doing something different. There was windows for going to him as well. He had what was called mahi, some ancient things that if you want the energy to move around your body quicker, or there's some stuck energy, because there was stuck energy for me, and he helped me get it moving. He blows it up your nose. So it's called mahi, and he blows it up your nose. It's quite traumatic. And then they have a helper who has done many, many, many ceremonies, who sits by the door like this incredible warrior woman that she was. She did so much for me. And she watches the space and she takes care of everybody. They're all taking care of us. So we're all taken care of all the time, every minute. So even though there were 16 of us, 4 of them were taking care of us. So then we went anti-clockwise, and as it was our turn, we would go to the shaman, we would give him our vessel, which is our cup. Pre-COVID, they used to have the same cup, but we had to take our own cups with COVID, and they put in the most disgusting black gluggy thing in there that we had to drink. And we drank it, and then we'd like suma kasi pak, and everyone's like kasi kipa, and down the hatchet it went. And then we go to our spot whilst everybody does that. I found for me it took a while to start to get, and that happened with Ayahuasca as well. It takes a while for me to start to connect in. It was the same with hypnotherapy when I first started. I was one of the hard ones in terms of I was hard, not anymore, but I was very difficult in breaking down the barriers. Not because I didn't want to. And some people started, so we each had a bucket. Some people, during that whole time, I just want to say I never purged at all. I never purged, neither did Christian, but most people did. I'm not a purger. Like, I didn't purge even with the Ayahuasca. I didn't purge. Like, even in my history, when, just say, many years ago, when I've tried to get sick because I wanted to purge, say, alcohol that I drank too much of, I wasn't able to. So I'm not a purging person. So, but many people, as soon as they drank it, they purged straight away. And then some people kept purging, like it was and the purging, what that is energy that needs to leave the body. It really needs to just leave the body. Straight away, though, I felt physically weak and nauseous. So straight away, I felt like my body was physically weak. The way that it works is the more that you have this plant medicine, the more of a relationship you have with grandfather. Okay, it's almost like you're getting to know each other, but that's the way that it's described to me. So I started to get insights. So then it was starting to work. So the ceremony, the first ceremony went from 11 p.m. until 2 p.m. the next day. Epic. During that time, if I just give you a summary of it, it's like I was reduced to nothing. I don't know if I can explain that, like reduced to nothing. And even physically I was reduced to nothing because, of course, I didn't take my contact lenses. I took my glasses. I haven't got them here, my proper glasses. These are reading. Oh, yeah, here. You wouldn't believe it. From the first night, my glasses broke. So I was walking around like this. Like, so my glasses broke. My bra was uncomfortable. I ended up taking that off. So my boobs are down my stomach. I was reduced to nothing. I literally was reduced to nothing. That's what it felt like. And I almost felt like I became like a little girl. Like I was taken back to being a little girl. It was nighttime in the middle of like the bush kind of thing. There was a toilet where we were, but it was one of those outdoor ones. It was a beautiful one where you actually walk up to a throne, sit on the toilet, and then all you see is nature in front of you, and there's nobody there that can go there because of the way that it's facing. But I was too scared to go to the toilet. The lady this is after I took the tea, one of the ladies who was supposed to look after us, she was beautiful. Every time we need help, we just ask for it. And I said to her, can you take me to the toilet? And it just reminded me of when I was a little girl, our toilet was outside. It was not inside. And all my sisters are older than me. And when I was a little girl, they were teenagers. So I would always ask one of my sisters to take me to the toilet. And it just took me straight back there where I was that vulnerable, because that's what I was, completely stripped. So you're reduced to that. So I asked help, and she said, do you want me to stand next to you, or do you want me to leave you to have some privacy? And I said, can you stand next to me? So this is the first time I've ever like peed in front of anybody. And this is a lady that I didn't know before. So she stood there while I peed, because I didn't feel safe to pee by myself. And she was beautiful. So I found it difficult to walk. And I was trying to put my shoes on to go to the toilet. Remember, this is nighttime, and there's no lights outside at all, and it's bush. And, I had fear of snakes and things like that. And I was going to put my shoes on. She said, do you need to put your shoes on? Because it was quite wet, the ground as well. And I said, no, actually I don't. She goes, it's okay, I'm with you. You're safe with me. And you're safe. And she just kept talking to me all the way to the toilet. You're safe with me. You're safe with me. You're safe with me. And she took me to the toilet. And I felt a lot better after I went to the toilet, that's for sure. And then came back, and then the insights started to come. So it's almost like I really learned every single thing that happened was like a teaching, if that makes sense. It was almost like I had to allow myself to be that vulnerable, if that makes sense. Like, because vulnerability is the road to growth. That's a really important thing. I'm going to say that again. Vulnerability is the road to growth. If you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, how are you going to grow? Because when you think about it, people connect in with vulnerability. People don't connect in with people that feel confident with everything. They connect in with vulnerability. And so that was a teaching for me. So everything that happened over the whole time, even if it wasn't in the actual ceremony, was a teaching. Everything that happened. So then I started to get some insights that started to come to me. So San Pedro is different to, like I said, Ayahuasca, because So ayahuasca, you just get the visions because you have the mask on, you just get the visions. This, you don't put a mask on for this. You lie down and close your eyes, but it's the thoughts come in slowly and they integrate with your existing thoughts and then they make sense. But a lot of the thoughts, because this is the way the medicine works, because the medicine knows you're there for 2 days, if you're there for 1 day, it works differently. But if you're there for 2 days, it would almost like you're watching a movie and you're not going to know how it ends until the end. So there's a lot of, the first day, there's a lot of confusion. It's like, but what does that mean? And then by the end of, the end of that first ceremony, the shaman said to me, I promise you, it'll all make sense tomorrow. I promise you. And it did. Because there's a lot of confusion in that first day. There's a lot of what does it really mean? So these are the insights that I got. The first insight to do with my son, I think is really important, is if I want my son to be a man, I can't treat him like a boy. And so what that means is, for me, is that many things. It means many things. Like, I have been surrendering a lot to not treating my son like a boy. He's 28 years old. I have surrendered a lot, but there's a lot I still hang on to. Example, without him asking and without him ever requesting, I keep, this is what I would do previously. I haven't done it since I've been back, is, can I come over to your place to clean? So I have cleaners that clean my house, but I request to go to his apartment to clean it. I take his sheets, I bring them, I wash them. He's never asked for me to do that. Okay, so this is all about me wanting him to be comfortable, wanting him to be in a clean environment, wanting everything to be ordered for him. Okay. Another thing that I would do is, just say we had a family event, I would text him and say, Peter, we're all going to be at Auntie Kathy's this Saturday at 12 o'clock. Would be really good if you're with your cousins, because I want him to be in the family feeling and environment and connection, because he closes himself off a lot. And then I would give him another reminder and another reminder and another reminder, and then the time would come and I would we're all here now, are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? Instead of just letting him be. And the reason I was doing that was because I want him to be with family, I want him to be connected, I want him to be with community, because he hasn't got a girlfriend or anything like that. And also asking him questions all the time, like, what about if you just go on Tinder and doesn't matter and just meet somebody, that kind of, go to the gym, why don't you go to the gym? All that kind of, treating him like a boy, not a man. So that was the first insight. So the decision I made was I was going to stop that. I was going to stop all of that, all of it. Doesn't matter how important the event is, as long as he's invited, he can work it out. The other insights that I got was that when I was 28, I made some choices that weren't really close to the light. And here I am today. If you look back at them and, they were wrong choices, but were they really wrong? Because they led me to where I am today. There was only one way to learn. There's only one way to get out, and that's to go in. I had to make those mistakes. How would I know what living with integrity is unless I know what it means not to live with integrity? At the age of 28, I was already having an affair on my first husband, who was a beautiful man, because I'd fallen in love with John, who was my second husband, who ended up being with for 22 years. So I didn't go about it the right way. I didn't go about it with integrity. I went about it with fear. I was too scared to do the right thing. I just knew that I needed to be with John. And so the way that I treated Nick was unfair. He didn't deserve that. I apologized to him later, a lot. But that's the age my son's at. And here I am now, having learned from all of that. So the message I got was, don't make it wrong. Don't shame his choices, even internally. Even internally, don't shame his choices. Make it okay. The second insight so that was a lot about Peter. There was a lot of crying. That's how I purge. I cry a lot. So I cry a lot. So the connection with me and my son is very, very, very strong. The next insight was, Carolina says, spiritual contracts of transformation before we come. 1,000%, Carolina, 1,000%. They're all spiritual contracts, for sure. I mean, we have a spiritual contract, otherwise you wouldn't be here on this call. We all do. Like as an example, Kerry, who's the first person I can see here, I'm sure we have a spiritual contract. She's helped me connect into the music that really helps me relax and connect to my light. Kath Wells, who's also in this group, I only knew Kath previously from doing my HypnoFit program, and yet I turned to her when I was going through this, going backwards and forwards about the Queensland property, because I knew that she chose a minimalist life. And I knew that she'd made certain decisions. So I turned to her. I would never have done that before. Like, to be in that total humility space of, I need your advice on this issue. It's all a contract. How to stay connected to my heart in terms of those insights is basically, especially me, my whole life, I'm the kind of person who would speak before I thought. So it's really just to pause before I speak. Pause before I respond. Pause before I text. Because I have to do everything. This is the old version of me. I had to do everything yesterday. So if something would happen, I had to respond now. I don't need to respond now. I can pause. And by pausing, I'm connecting into my heart, which is my light. Pause before I eat. Always remember what's important and what really matters here. This is another guidance that I got, people need unconditional love, not directions and guidance. So keep it simple. And a huge theme for me, which is going to be in a lot of the work that I'm going to do in the future, is it's not about teaching people, it's about being the change. And by being the change, you are the example. They can see you, they can feel you, they can feel your light, they can see you, and that's the way you impact humanity. It's not by saying, so Julie, what I really think you need to do from now on is, it's by talking about me doing it, you might choose to do that too. Or you might not, because it may not be right for you. So just what's right for me is not necessarily right for you, but at least you see the options. So it's all about being the example. All those insights were off the back of my ego popping. And again, so there's so many layers. There's so many layers to the ego. Like, I thought I had it handled, with the last two ceremonies with the ego. For it to pop, I felt my energy was stuck in my stomach. So when the window was open, because they announce when the windows are open, when you can take certain drinks or take the thing up your nose, I knew that even though it scared me, that I needed to take the thing up my nose. And so you do a prayer together, and this is the guy that owns the property, who also, has trained. He did his prayer and his mahi, and he blew it up both nostrils, and it's a real poof kind of feeling, and that shifted the energy and popped my ego. As soon as my ego popped, the whole room felt it, and they all broke into a song. It was magical. I can't explain it. It was magical, and by this stage it was daylight, and we had gone outside. Then we left and we went outside to the sacred circle, and they were all singing. We are, like I don't even know. I'm a really bad singer, so I can't even sing. but it's like, it's all about being family and loving each other, and it was really joyous and beautiful, and it was just, I was just listening and crying and wailing and wailing and wailing, because I felt like I finally was part of this family, because the ego just went pop. Got another layer out of the way, which was absolutely magnificent. And a few of us were really wrecked. The experienced people who have done many, many ceremonies, they were fine. They were, you know, when the ceremony had ended and it was time to have a very light dinner. So the dinner was like steamed vegetables and rice, but no salt, just lemon. They were talking, they were organising. There was a roster in terms of duties that needed to happen. Luckily, my organised duties was on the last day, which was to clean the bathrooms and toilets, which was great because I was fine by then. But the end of that first day, I was wrecked. I couldn't stand. Like, people came to give me my, you know, we were in the house, we were in the homestead at that stage, and people came to give me my dinner, and I could barely sit up to have it. Like, my body was like smashed. Like, every little bit of my body was smashed because it'd gone through a huge energetic purge, and so much had been released. So I was exhausted. We went to sleep that night straight after dinner. So 8 p.m. we were asleep, and we had to meet back at the location. So no one's allowed to leave the grounds. So this property is just magnificent and beautiful, and all the tents are there, the caravans are there, the homestead is there. No one is allowed or permitted to even go to their car, which is just outside the gate. No one's permitted to leave. And we went and met. There was no breakfast or anything like that because the next day was going to be the next ceremony. So we met so we arrived on the Wednesday night. Ceremony went all the way until the next day in the afternoon. We had dinner and then we went to bed. And then the next ceremony was going to be a day ceremony, which was to start in the morning. Now, because I had been, so 6 o'clock in the morning start, because I had such a huge physical experience and emotional experience, I tell you, the last thing I wanted to do, and I felt like I had the worst hangover ever. And that was because I didn't drink any water at all during that time. The reason I didn't drink any water was because of fear. I actually was afraid that I was going to purge, like be sick. And so I didn't drink any water, which gave me the biggest headache ever and like the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. So you know when you have a hangover, the last thing you want to do is have more of the stuff that gave you the hangover. But I knew I had to. So I just knew that the process was incomplete. So we started the day ceremony and again anti-clockwise, and had my tea, and I wasn't looking forward to it because I already felt quite sick and nauseous, even though I'd woken up better than the day before. I didn't want to have it. And then when the second window opened, so the first window everybody has it, and then so the first window everybody has the tea, both ceremonies, and then the second and third window not everybody has it. It depends whether you feel like you need it. I didn't want it, but I saw this man who's part of the group who, as soon as the second window was open, he went, and he is a purger. So as soon as he drank it, he straight away was sick into the bucket, had some more, straight away sick into the bucket. And that, again, was a lesson for me in that, look how courageous he is. I know I need to do this. I know I need to have this tea. I know I need to. I don't want to because I'm fearful of it, and that's why I've got to do it. And so I saw him do it, and then I got up and did it. And it was just, the insights just started coming in. Everything started getting tied up. I was taught and told exactly why my ego was formed. So that was a very interesting insight. I didn't know this before because it was all subconscious. The reason as to why my ego was so big, I actually found out, like, the plan before my birth. So I was told like, it was supposed to be that way. I was supposed to have a big ego, like, because this is my work, and it'll all come to the fore at the end when I tell you what my work is. But I'll just quickly tell you guys as to why it was all planned for me before my birth. So the story of my birth is that it was a very well-known fact that my father, who passed 1st of May last year, exceptionally good-looking man, exceptionally good-looking, like the best-looking man in the village by far, like tall, strong. He was the strongest man in the village. There's this huge rock in the village, and he's the only one that ever moved it, apart from his grandson, who went many years later to move it. Just beautiful features, really classic features, you know, very similar to that kind of Rock Hudson kind of look. He fell in love with a woman in the village who was the prettiest woman in the village, and they got engaged. And she died when they were engaged. He was 18 at the time, because they used to get married quite young then. His parents, because he was overcome with grief and he couldn't cope with life, his parents forced him to marry my mum. My mum is very different. So my mum was never an attractive woman. My mum, very short, quite dumpy in terms of chubby. Never, like, I've told you guys about this before, my mum has no ego. She actually doesn't. She's one of these, I don't know how many people in the world would be like that, but she doesn't. And she's never tried to look better. She's never tried to pretty herself up. She's never tried to wear the fashionable clothes or lipstick or makeup or anything. She was all about being of service to other people, and she still is. She's 90 years old, and she's the most amazing human I know. And we all know that Dad was forced to marry her. At the wedding, he tried to leave, and he was brought back, and they said, no, you have to. So he didn't even get the opportunity to grieve for his fiancée. And so my mum always knew she was never wanted, never desired by my father. So that's something that in our family, there are no secrets. So we always know what's going on. So this is very subconscious. Like, Dad never ever inferred that he expected us to be pretty, never ever said anything like that. But what was subconscious was, if, you know, Dad's favourite colour was red, so we would always get red and wear red. You know, in fact, my old branding, the old Helen Midas branding many years ago was red and black. So as a little girl, because all my sisters were older than me, they were a lot older than me, they used to pretty me up and put nail polish on me from when I was 5. I always had makeup. At high school, I always had an eyeliner in my pocket of my uniform, right from year 7. I never left the house without it. I did a post recently about being at the gym without makeup. That's unusual. Like, I don't do that anymore. I don't wear makeup at the gym ever. But I used to up to this year, up to the end of last year, because I didn't feel that I was good enough not to wear it. And even when I was gifted short-sightedness as part of my energetic signature and who I am, and in high school, I would rather not see the blackboard than wear my glasses. So I never wore my glasses in high school. At the age of 16, my dad bought me contact lenses. And so being pretty is something subconsciously, I didn't realize this until the ceremony, is to be pretty for my dad. Because pretty is important. And I would notice things about being pretty. Like, I noticed things during my lifetime. I'll give you one example, which is something I really noticed. The first time we went to New York, I didn't have any makeup or anything because it was a long trip, but I had nothing on my face, and I was pretty, I was pretty ratty. I was wearing tracksuit bottom runners and everything. Everybody we were stuck in the subway and we didn't know how to get a ticket. Nobody helped us. And everybody I had asked for help, nobody helped me. They refused to help me. And then I went, I wonder if it's because of the way I look. And the next day, I put my makeup on like I normally do, did my hair, wore nice clothes. As soon as I asked for help, people were very nice. And I went, wow. And then I read up into it and researched it, and that is a fact. Pretty people get more support and more help from society, because that is a big program that we've got. So the ego came with me in this world in a very, very, very powerful way, in terms of just the way that I present myself, really important. But then when I started to do things, it went against my spirit. So in 2018, I started wearing those fake eyelashes. And when I would see a picture of it, it actually disgusted me. So I went through a stage where I would wear them. And then there was one time when I was really, really sick, and because they cover your mouth or whatever they do when they put it on, I could hardly breathe. And I was there for like 2 hours for her to put the fake eyelashes on. I thought, what the fuck am I doing? Or like, what the fuck do I want fake eyelashes for? Like, I don't fucking even want mascara. Like, why the fuck am I putting myself through 2 hours of pain so I can have long eyelashes that when you look at the picture, they look so fake, right? And I stopped that and I never did that again. And from this first ceremony that I did, that's the first thing that happened, was take off my nails, because I looked at my nails that I've had for the last 12 years, because I always justified it as I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a presenter, I use my hands a lot, they need to be beautiful. And my mum has always said to me, always, because she's never done her nails, never worn nail polish, never worn makeup, she's always said to me, are these the nails that God gave you? Why do you think they're attractive? You know, your hands are attractive, the way that God gave them to you. And now, honestly, and no judgment for anyone who chooses to have manicured nails, absolutely no judgment, no judgment. This is my story, and this is my reason for being here, is disconnecting from the ego, because this is my work. And honestly, I can't think of anything worse than having painted fingernails, or, you know, like that gel thing put on there, and it just disgusts me now. Like, for me, I still love it on other people, but just for me. As soon as my dad passed in May, one of the things that happened to me, I don't know if you remember, is that I got this thing in my eye. I forget what it's called. It starts with a C. It's not a cyst, and it's not a sty. It was a big thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it was there for 3.5 months, which meant I couldn't wear makeup during my presentations. I was doing some presentations for some overseas conferences and so on. That was the beginning of stripping the ego for me. That was the beginning, because I had to do presentations without makeup. I had to go out without makeup. And it was the beginning of stripping the ego for me. So that whole story got told to me, that's part of why I'm here. That I had to have a big ego in order to release it, in order to teach it. Does that make sense? It's like I had to have depression, which I did, 25 years ago, in order to heal myself, in order to help other people release trauma with hypnotherapy. Like, I had to have a big ego, which I always thought was confidence, but it wasn't. So it's been a huge process for me to drop, everything. Yes, I am wearing makeup today, and it is a process. I've got to be honest with you, it is a struggle. It is still a struggle for me. So I'm doing things slowly, and I'm being very gentle with myself, and I'm not being harsh, and I'm not being critical. I do want to go to a place where I always show up with nothing on my skin, and I'm wearing very little, but it's still something for me, something I need to let go of completely. The next thing is, it's very apparent to me about the teachings that I have to do about, we really live in a sick society where we have someone like Kylie Jenner become, now no disrespect to Kylie because she's worked her ass off, and you know they do have a family that's very connected in terms of the Kardashians, but think about what she looked like as a child and what she looks like now. She looks nothing like herself, and she loves herself as this fake profile, which is really, really, really sad. And it's really, really sad when we see our children pump up their lips, look nothing like themselves, starve themselves to death, kill themselves because of all the pressure that we're putting on our children. And the only way we can teach them is by being the example. If we you know, bust our gut to go to the gym so we can look a certain way, if we put our tanning solution on our body, and if we do everything we do to ourselves to look a certain way, then how would we expect that our children are going to love themselves for who they are? So it was all about enough looking up to the people that are pretty. We're obsessed with the body instead of honouring the body as it is, and so much pressure for our children to look a certain way. There's so much pressure for us to have the perfect body, to be the perfect business owner, you know, like that person's successful and I'm not successful, and so, you know, I'm unworthy because of that. Not only do I have to have a successful business and I have to look fantastic, I've got to be sexy at the same time as smart. There's so much pressure in everything that, you know, this was all coming to me very, very clearly. During the whole ceremony, and then I'm going to go to questions, everybody was influencing somebody else in some very special way. I'll give you an example of something very powerful that happened. When I was very, very connected in, at one point in the ceremony on the second day, and there's different windows that are open. There was a window where you can actually do a go to the fire and actually say something to the group. So there's only certain windows you can do that. And there was one window that was opened on the second day, and I had to speak to the group. So I went to the group, knelt by the fire, and opened my heart. And I felt the message that I needed to give was for the men in the group. Because the men, most of them were like around my son's age, like the early 30s kind of age. And every time they were in pain, I felt their pain because I felt like it was my son. Every time they suffered, I connected into that. The women in the group were like warrior women, you know, but the men, they suffered a lot during that whole process. And so I did a public apology. I said, as a mother, I want to apologize to all the men in the group. If ever we expected you to be someone else than who you really are, if ever we expected you to achieve this, and we gave you any inference that that was important for you other than who you really are, I am so sorry. That, you know, what I said to them was, and I looked at them each in the eye, and I said to them, you are perfect the way you are. If your mum has indicated that they want anything else, it's only because they love you so much and they don't know what else to do. So we love our sons, and we only want the best for them. And they were bawling their eyes off, all of them. I spoke with my heart and they were crying. Straight after me, one of the people in the group, he stood up. He's never spoken before. He's done ceremonies before, but he's never spoken. And he came to me later and he said that I gave him the courage to speak. And his story was so painful. He said that his community raped him as a little boy. His whole community raped him and sold him. And he attempted to kill himself many times. And this is the first time he was telling his story. And then basically from that point on, every time somebody was having a sad experience, I almost felt like I felt like a mother to them, and I just wanted to hug them and, you know, hold them, and they literally sobbing on my shoulder. So, ultimately it's about being the change for your children, like being the change for our children, as opposed to telling our children. The day before, the shaman had said to me, because I was crying, and because he came to me at the end to ask, because they know how we're doing, but they come and check in with us, and I was talking about my son, and he said that grandfather is so powerful. You pray into that fire tomorrow, and it's so powerful, it will come true. So this is what happened on day 2. I listened to him and I prayed into the fire about my son stepping into his manhood, and I wished and I prayed that I was going to sit in a park with him, and I was going to apologize to him like I apologized to these men, and I was going to speak to him in a park setting. This is what happened, guys. And also I wanted to say things to 2 of my sisters that I felt I needed them to hear. One of them being my sister who's suffered from cancer for most of her life, and most of her limbs are no longer in existence, and I know she's ashamed of her body, and I needed to speak to her about that. And something to my other sister about fear. The next day after we got home, so this finished on Saturday, when I got home on Sunday, without organising anything, all those 3 people came to me. Now this is what happened. I was at my mother's house, and so on the way back from there, I wanted to stop by Peter's, my son's house, so I could talk to him, but something inside me said, no, not now, because I was feeling shattered, but not now, just leave it. And again, that's against what I usually would do. I usually act on things immediately, but it was just leave it, just trust, just have faith in grandfather, he'll organise it. The next day, I was at my mum's house, I'm washing the dishes, in comes Peter, my son. He had a coffee, didn't expect him to be there. This is at my mum's house, his grandmother. And I said to him, Peter, after your coffee, do you want to go for a walk across the road to the park? Because mum lives across the road, across the park. He goes, yeah, sure, mum. So we went to the park, I kid you not, sat exactly as my vision on the chair the next day under a tree, and I told him everything in my heart. Exactly in the setting that I wanted to. It was just magic. It was really magic. And then my sisters were there, they came too. The 2 that, interestingly, I had nothing to say to one of my sisters or my brother. They didn't come, but the 2 that I needed to talk to, they came to my mum's that day. And I told them what I needed to tell them. And so, telling you about this experience, somebody else described it who was there with me, and they said, it's like, just say you've never been to a beach before, right? And I bring you a grain of sand and say, this is the beach. It's like that. Like there's so much, the songs, like there was a time, there's windows open for entertainment as well, whilst we're going through the process, the ceremony, and the songs, because people brought their instruments, were like you just cry just listening to the songs. Like the energy is so magical and beautiful that for me, this has been the most transformational time.